Hey, welcome to episode 2 of My Parsing Podcast. We are back. My name's Charlie, and we have Kelly. Say hi, Kelly.
Hey, I'm Kelly, the aforementioned.
I was waiting for the hi, Kelly. I just figured that was a you dad joke. I was prepared for it.
I don't have a drum set for the punch. I don't have one. So,
well, what we talked about before on this podcast, we go over speeches and we break them down from what politicians deliver. They usually have fluff. They usually have things that they are kind of burying the lead on. And by breaking those speeches down, by parsing them out, we can get to them. Before we get started, before we get into some of the news items, though, Kelly, I got hit by one of those like Facebook, Instagram, they know what you're thinking ads, and it got me.
Like you were speaking of something to someone, and then all of a sudden, now it's in your feed, type thing.
Yeah. So I got a friend, and I don't even think I looked it up.
Oh, congratulations!
Online. I did. Thank you. Mm-hmm. It's taken me a few years, but I got a friend a flask for Christmas, and it was just a joke that we had ongoing. But because I talked about it, because I probably typed it in and searched at some point, they've been delivering me. The tech gods have been delivering me flask ads for the past like month and a half now, and so I finally folded and bought one of them.
Now you're on the list.
Yeah, they beat me down. I felt like it was like my 3-year-old. Like, will you buy this for me? How about this?
Right.
But I have to say, I got the flask. It is actually the most amazing flask I have ever seen. Now, when will I ever use a flask? I have no idea. So they definitely just got my money. But in this case, I did at least get a good product.
What makes it so amazing?
After they get you get into like research, or I get into research mode. So it is it's an actual copper flask. So when you looked at I looked into like how to clean it, you actually just put it straight on the stovetop and boil the water straight in the flask and pour it out from there. It's like, it's a real flask instead of, I don't know, you can get the ones that are like $4 at the grocery store. I'm not exactly sure who those are for either, but they have like a plastic top. You definitely can't boil those. You probably shouldn't boil those. There's probably some plastic coming out, but it was interesting. I feel like I should run my own little like micro distillery, like distill something out of my little copper flask.
Yeah, not to beleaguer the point, but do you own a pair of boots in which to stick the said flask?
No. Okay. I'm in Virginia. We don't. I own suit coats though. So you just drop it in the suit coat, but not the boots.
That's where my phone goes. My flask and my phone, and then if it was the Wild Wild West, my phone and my flask would stop the assassin's bullet from hitting my heart. That would be
That's perfect. You just got to layer them on top of each other, make sure that they're perfect, right?
That's definitely from some TV show I've seen. I don't remember what it is, but okay.
So let's move on. Let's go to some news items, and these are some news items I wanted to get to. The first one is actually along these same lines, which is why I wanted to talk about it. And there's a chance that we mentioned it. You and I have probably talked about it before, but there's a study that's been done where half of all of the posts regarding COVID are actually put there by bots. Mm-hmm. So when you start looking at everything on the internet, people share dumb stuff about vaccines. People share dumb stuff about anti-vaxxers. And you can see all of these posts on the internet. Half of them have shown to start from bots. And now they target people, somebody like my mom, who might not know that, she doesn't know the person that shared it, but she thinks she knows them. So she's like, that's a good, funny post. And so she shares it and gives that post that boost. And what happens is that as the algorithm takes over, let's say you're pro-vax and I'm anti-vax, I start getting more anti-vax stuff. You start getting more pro-vax stuff. And before you know it, you and I are on completely opposite sides, or at least you think I'm on an opposite side, and I think you're on an opposite side. And therefore, you just start disliking each other that little bit more. And it's going to be interesting. I bring it up because it's like one of those, like, what is the future of the internet, or what's the future of warfare? And I think if you track down where these bots from, they're generally not the U.S. They're generally not corporations trying to make money. It's generally, some sort of a subversive tactic. The question is, how do you stop that? And I just think it's an interesting research study. I think it'll be interesting to figure out.
Yeah, it's the echo chamber, right? That's been long-term criticism of social media, and I think that probably extends even long before any of us were born into other kinds of media. What kind of magazines do you subscribe to? What kind of papers do you read? What Sunday morning show do you watch? And in long before there was TV and radio. But the artificial intelligence aspect of it is fascinating. And actually, I actually saw in my Facebook feed an advertisement for have an AI bot write your blog posts, which I thought was fascinating since I don't have a blog. I don't know where that came from, but yeah.
I was waiting for you to say flasks. I was like, they are trying to track me down through my friends, and that is not cool.
It'll be flasks now. I guarantee you in the next 3 days I'll have a flask ad. My phone is sitting right next to me. It's listening. Yeah, there's no question.
No, the AI adds a whole different level to this, but it is also interesting to look back, and you're exactly correct. All sorts of media through the ages have had these aspects to them, and there is an argument. I'm not sure which side I fall on, but I would be happy to make the argument that when there were fewer forms of communication, it was easier to split people or easier to mislead people. And a lot of the stories used to kind of mislead in subtle ways. And I think you kind of had to do that when you had less avenues to communicate. But I think with fewer ways to communicate, there's a good argument that it was easier to move whole sections of society in different directions.
You look at political cartoons over the centuries, very persuasive. Look at the political cartoons that can't even come up with words now, depicting Abraham Lincoln before he took office in 1861. Yeah, I think that's when he would have taken office. Yeah. Just devastating towards him. And, they really railed on him in an attempt to move public opinion. So, and these were not just Southern, by the way. These were plenty of Northern, as far as I know. Now I'm getting emails and postcards because I have no idea what I'm talking about anyway.
No, I mean, that was if you look back through the different presidential debates, I think it was Quincy Adams. I can't think of who he was running against, but it was considered one of the dirtiest campaigns in history. Mm-hmm. And when you go back through some of the things that they said against each other, they're kind of hilarious. That was one of the famous political lines, like he masticates daily. They were talking to people that didn't know
what
not
that
too
means.
Many people know the word mastication, but they weren't even lying. Like he chews daily. But they were just out saying stuff, trying to gin up the public against people. It honestly, while that line itself isn't as crazy as some of what we hear today, there were other lines and there were other things in that campaign. It was just, it was dirty, and even by today's standards. So it is always interesting to contextualize what we're dealing with and then move it back into the past and see that stuff is just about the same, which is actually a good way to move into the next issue. President Biden yesterday proposed to use the filibuster to change voting rights.
Wait, Joe Biden was in favor of the filibuster?
No, Joe Biden pushed
to
to
eliminate?
remove the
Remove it.
filibuster.
Okay.
Because, well, I don't know how to say this correctly. Because he's too lazy of a president to actually make the changes that he wants to the voting rights. So he needs to change the rules in order to make those changes. But I'll admit, I don't even know what's in his voting rights package. I don't care. I'm probably generally supportive of it. But as soon as he said that we're going to remove the filibuster in order to pass this, he lost me. And there's no way that you can get me back. And it's because of this. Because if I don't care whether you're a Trump supporter, whether you're a Trump supporter and you don't like January 6th, whether you're a Democrat and you don't like January 6th, whether you're a Democrat and whatever. When January 6th happened, let's just call it an insurrection. Let's say they were trying to overthrow the government because they didn't like what the outcome of the vote was. And I don't care if it was or wasn't. The left seems to be pushing that narrative wholeheartedly. So let's just take that because they're the ones trying to pass the voting bill as well. The right wasn't happy with how the vote happened. They weren't happy with how the vote was counted. They don't believe the vote was counted correctly. So if you change the amount of votes needed, and at some point in our future, Republicans are going to have 51 votes again, right? Like, whether it's in 2 years, whether it's in 4 years, whether it's in 20 years, Republicans are going to have 51 votes in the Senate at some point. And then they can change the voting rights to anything that they want at that point. Like, there's no way you can stop them.
Because we've gotten rid of the filibuster, and so no one can hold back that.
We've gotten rid of the filibuster. 51.
Yeah.
So here's the idea of the filibuster. I may hopefully have a book coming out sometime in the next couple of years on the filibuster. So I glossed over that a little bit. But the filibuster, in some sort of ways, it was a mistake. That was kind of an idea of the founding of the Senate, but ended up being put in there, or ended up happening as kind of a mistake. But the filibuster is what sets the Senate apart from any other chamber in the world. And I would say has kind of made our Senate and our legislative system what it is today. But it gives the minority the ability, the minority being one person or the group in minority, the right to stand up and talk and basically stop any bill they want to just by talking, by trying to have a full debate and making sure an issue is fully talked about. And so to me, the filibuster is what everybody on the left should stand up for, because it is the right of the minority to stand up and be heard.
Now, when I was a kid growing up, and according to the West Wing episode that I saw, the filibuster to me is as long as you, the single senator, can stand and you can't sit down, you can't drink water, you can't take a break to go to the restroom, you can't stop talking, but you can read the Betty Crocker cookbook. That's the filibuster, and maybe you can do that for 12 hours. Am I wrong in what that is, or is there more to it?
Well, I would say that there's two ways to explain where that's a little bit wrong. One, let's say you and I don't agree on an issue, but we're still senators and I have some respect for you. So let's say I see you filibustering and you're dancing around because you really got to use the restroom.
Mm-hmm. We both carry flasks, and so we're together, and that we're friendly that way. Gotcha.
We're friendly. We've got it, yeah. And you might yield to me for the purpose of asking a question, and my asking of a question will likely last as long as it takes you to run to the bathroom and run back, so that you can, still stand there.
So you can yield to a sympathetic senator who will ask a question, and that's the only thing. And then you can then answer that question or do whatever you want to do.
Yep. So we're still in the realm of what is considered a filibuster, or what I would consider a real filibuster, talking about this. Now, that's even gone, everything else that you said pretty much holds, to the point of, I believe that there was a senator in a wheelchair at one point, and while he was talking, he had to keep, I think, his hand up in the air, and if his hand came down onto the, to rest on his chair, then a flag would come up, and it would say knee down. And knee down, it's the same thing as like in a hockey match, right? As soon as your knee hits the ice, they break up the fight. Knee down is the end of the filibuster. So it was like hand down, flag up, knee down, and that was the end of the filibuster. Now, that's the way a filibuster is supposed to work.
Well, they couldn't do like a Weekend at Bernie's thing where they tied a rope to his hand. Okay, never mind.
I think that if we saw what the contraption was, it was probably pretty much like a rope in his hand.
Okay.
Just knowing the Senate.
Yeah.
So that is let's call it the real filibuster.
Yeah.
Now, there is what is called the modern filibuster. I call it the fake filibuster, but it's a true filibuster. Basically, I just threaten that I'm going to stand up and take control over the Senate. And
Gotcha.
You go, oh, no, you're threatening me. And so you don't proceed with whatever it was that I'm threatening my filibuster over. I don't consider that a filibuster because that's me threatening something and not doing something. And that's you just reacting to that without me having to stand up and take the floor. But real filibusters are fairly rare. I've really only seen one real one, and that was Rand Paul in the Senate filibustering over the usage of drones. And he actually won his fight in that and was able to change the use of drones. The last fake filibuster I saw was great. That was Senator Ted Cruz. He claimed that he filibustered to take down Obamacare, but in truth, there had been an agreement that they weren't going to hold a vote for 60 hours. So Ted Cruz just spoke in that intervening time and called it a filibuster. And I was like, well, no, that's all the Senate procedures have happened, which means you're not actually holding anything up. And when the time comes up, you aren't allowed to talk anymore. That is not a filibuster. But
interesting.
That is what it is. But it's I think the speech from Biden was yesterday, and he's already come out and changed his tune because it's something like a quarter of the Democratic Party doesn't want to end the filibuster either, because of the idea that when they lose leadership,
right,
then they don't have the ability. They are, this is standing up for the rights of the minority. So either way, President Biden, another bad idea. His own party stood up to him. Manchin wins again. I was happy. The filibuster's a fight on both sides of the aisle. When a Republican gets into office next time, they're going to want to remove the filibuster. It's just lazy politics, and pisses me off. Sorry.
Okay.
I guess. What do we got? Have you gotten any of President Biden's COVID test yet?
No. They're supposed to be sending him to the house?
Yeah. They
no.
got him coming directly to you.
No, and I can tell you that we're getting ready to go on a trip, and I kind of had this idea. Well, maybe I'm gonna double check. Even though I'm triple shot now, that sounds like a song. I thought I'd check. You can't get tested, and I live in the fourth largest city in America. I can't find testing that's greater than 5 days out. With scheduling with the commercial testing. So, you go to the grocery store or the drugstore and they have signs say no testing available, no home testing available. And then in 6 days you can sign up to get your nasal swab or your spit test or whatever. So no, I have not received a Biden at home COVID test.
And that's because nobody has yet.
Nobody has.
Which is my favorite part of this. And it's amazing when you look at this policy, like, all right, I don't think it's a good public policy, but COVID responses to COVID have kind of changed the calculus on what good public policy is. So,
yeah.
All right, sending people free tests. Let's just consider that good public policy. For the sake of argument here. But all of his people, Fauci's been saying, but wait, we're going to have a bad winter. I know things are getting better. We have the vaccine, but winter's going to be bad. Other scientists were coming out and saying, let's just be careful of the winter. We still have to get through this winter. And then winter comes and Omicron makes its appearance, and Omicron starts taking over the world, and inflation's happening and supply chains are breaking down and Christmas is going to end. And Biden goes, oh man, I probably should have done something. Now he's already, 2 months late, 3 months late. And so to me, like, this testing thing, they bottom up, which means now you can't get a test. We can't find them. We're bartering tests in our neighborhood, like prisoners barter cigarettes. Like,
Right.
It's awful. And that's because the government, at the worst possible time, has taken them basically all off of store shelves because they're preparing to send them to us. And I've seen estimates now that the peak of Omicron is going to be somewhere around like January 19th. And they're not really planning on shipping them until somewhere around like January 28th. So the tests are going to come out past the peak. They're off the shelves during the peak. It's government at its worst. Oh, and then you have the USPS who, they have all the unions. So that makes it hard to talk to. Omicron's going around and you have all of the quarantine mandates. So they don't have enough staff. So when they start delivering these tests, which are going to be too late, they aren't going to be able to do everything else that they're supposed to do. So our mail's also going to be later than it should be as well. It's like it's amazing to me, but it all starts with you not having a test.
It's a domino effect, right?
Yeah.
I can't get it now. I'll get it late from the government, which will affect supply chain. Well, it affects supply chain now, and it'll affect the post office and delivery of my Sears catalog. That's a thing, right? Still, Sears catalog?
I think the USPS would probably love to bring the Sears catalog back. They could probably make a lot of money bringing that big thing around to people now.
You used to be able to buy a house out of those things.
I think you can buy a house from Amazon now, like a DIY build your own house.
I feel like I'm stepping into something, but you can get anything from Amazon right now. I feel like I might have read their head on the script today, but
yeah. No, I'm that's the next thing that we're talking about. You can get everything from Amazon.
Yeah.
Well, currently you can get everything from Amazon, and currently you can get everything from Amazon in 2 days. It's amazing. I love it. They helped us get through the pandemic. But Senator Klobuchar has a bill. It is getting marked up on Thursday. We'll come back to what markup is in just a second. Getting marked up on Thursday. And if the bill would pass in its current form, basically the idea is Amazon Prime couldn't exist anymore.
What?
I don't want that. I want Amazon Prime.
I want to tell you right now, you told us about your flask. I want to tell you that for Christmas, I got something ordered from Amazon Prime, showed up 5 weeks early because my wife was so excited about it. It's the butter cutter. Put a stick of butter in it and you squeeze it and it cuts the perfect slice of butter for your toast, which of course, you know, the greatest thing since sliced bread is buttered toast. And it's changed my life. And we got it on Amazon Prime. It was here 2 days and 5 weeks early for Christmas. I don't want to speak particularly of Jeff Bezos personally, but, you know, I love me some Prime. And I get angry when I can't get what I want off of it on time, by the way. Like a COVID test. Trying to order one right now.
So the idea here is that I love Amazon Prime. You love Amazon Prime. The ending of Amazon Prime is kind of I don't know. It's a shield here for what's going on. Basically, Klobuchar is making it so that Amazon wouldn't be able to provide extra services for a charge to anybody that's using their site. Or so, a flask manufacturer says, hey, I can ship things to people in 3 days, but Amazon Prime is great. You can get it there in 2. And you've got a badge, which puts me above other people in searches. So I'll tell you what, here, put my product in your warehouses, and here's some money for the badge. And so her bill makes that illegal.
So if I'm a Flask distributor separate from Amazon, I pay for the badge, which gives me higher search results, and I promise that I will drop ship it within Amazon's 2-day Prime guarantee. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, you also have to be in their warehouse, but they tested you drop shipping it. It's just that you never drop, as a percentage, you don't drop ship it in time enough for them to give the guarantee.
Oh, okay. So you have to ship to their warehouse.
So it you have to be in their warehouse.
Warehouses. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the kind of kicker for the antitrust people. And I don't believe that this is an antitrust issue. It's an interesting thing when you get to it, because Amazon, while they sell everything, they don't control they control a large, but they don't have a monopoly share of e-commerce. They don't have a monopoly share of commerce. They definitely don't have a monopoly share when you get into the different industries as well, like DIY homes. Actually, I don't know how many DIY home companies there are. There's a lot. There's a chance that they have that. Huh, yeah. See? I didn't know. DIY homes.
Tiny homes. Tiny homes.
Ooh, tiny homes.
So basically, Amazon still competes against Walmart and Best Buy and Target and whomever else I'm missing. They just happen to have do they have a bigger share?
So their market cap is, I want to say it's like, I'm going to get these numbers wrong now because we're going to do this
I didn't mean
live.
to put you on the spot.
No. I'm going to go, let's call it $1 trillion. That sounds like a lot.
I'll just, in the credits, put the email address for them to send.
We'll put it in the link. I think it's $1 billion. $1 billion sounds better. And the market cap for Target is like 400 million, and the market cap for Walmart is like 550 million. Those numbers sound low to me, which is why I wanted them to be $1 billion, which is why then Amazon needed to be $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Trillion is too high though. So we're pulling it back down to $1 billion and million. And if you look at Klobuchar's bill, what is interesting about it, first off, she represents the state of Target, the home state of where Target is. So they have somebody in her office. And the level of which you become a platform in this starts above the market cap of Target, and it starts above the market cap of Walmart as well. And Senator Cotton is on the bill. So this is not just something where I get annoyed when Congress decides what products I should have, which is why I think that the ending of Prime is annoying. I think it's a bad decision, because there's just other things that are in the way. There's ideas that Bezos had that are better than other people. There's not really anti-competitiveness going on. Consumer welfare standards not at risk. There's not a labor risk, which is what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. There's no risk. This is basically just came out of a Trump fight, and then the unions want to get in, and then Target and Walmart are like, let's gang up on Amazon. This is not a good couple of weeks of the news, which is why I wanted to do our second episode.
Yeah.
But sorry, leave me my Prime, people.
Oh yeah, I need to have. You and I talked about onion goggles previously.
Yep.
Yeah, butter cutter is great. As you sold the onion goggles, the butter cutter is just as good, and it's all Prime. I hope. I haven't looked for onion goggles.
No free ads, Kelly. No free ads.
I'm not. This is a testimonial. These aren't ads. This is a testimonial.
All right. So now I think would be a good time to get into our speech that we're going to talk about today. And it is kind of the opposite of what we talked about last time. We had a President Biden speech that was like 25 pages.
Mm-hmm.
He went on for about an hour, kind of rambling back and forth about different things. We were able to get that down to about 3 pages. But today we have a Lina Khan speech where she was at a joint event of the FTC and the Department of Justice. And it is a 3-page speech that I was able to get down to about a half a page. But yeah, no,
I like
it's
that.
short and
That's
accessible. Better. And I will include the link to the speech and a link to the parsed speech in the description.
Yeah.
But I liked it because, well, you'll see. But what's interesting about it to me is in 3 pages, you should be able to hold an argument, right? You should kind of,
Sure. That's pretty typical.
Here's what I believe. Here's a couple of reasons why I believe it. And then, you thank you and get out of the room. I don't think that she was able to do that. So that's how many hundreds of thousands of dollars in speechwriters. And she failed at making the whole point of the speech. And if she wouldn't have failed, which we'll get to in a second, I think it would have we would have been making fun of her for a different reason for this speech. So I think she probably just should have stayed home that day and not have said anything. But so she starts off and she says, we're at a pivotal moment. There's an evolution in the debate in antitrust, and that's that the public understanding of antitrust is that trusts or monopolies, consolidated markets, aren't just bad for consumers, they're also bad for labor. And that's where she lost me in sentence 1, because I think you understand what she's doing here, but she's saying, pulling the Adam Savage, I reject your reality and I insert my own.
It's like framing your argument by just creating your own argument and frame. Like, I'm going to tell you what I don't like about what I've created, because I'm not used to hearing that it's like good for labor. Like, it's not consumer. Sure. That's been historically what I've heard for antitrust, but labor is different.
Especially in like the modern era. This is Bork's biggest fight was for the consumer welfare standard, that should be how antitrust is applied. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that's the way antitrust has been applied basically since Bork. So it makes sense. It makes sense that having a monopoly might not necessarily be a bad thing as long as the consumer isn't hurt from it. Then it's not a bad thing. Claiming that they could change the labor market would actually mean that they would have like a monopoly over the labor market, which is kind of a totally different animal. I mean, that's a different beast. You would have over 50% of like all global GDP in order to do that. And it's just not going to happen. Here's where I agree with her, though. I do think that the public, that there is a pivotal moment on antitrust right now where the public isn't happy with big businesses. They don't like Google. They don't like Twitter. They don't like Facebook. They don't like Amazon. And I think in part that's Trump, right? Trump had his fights with Bezos, so he was going after Amazon. Trump thought that Twitter was censoring him, that Google was censoring the search results and making life easier on the left and harder on the right. And so he started this, and when the left gets in, they're just continued this kind of populist push against these big companies because that's what the left likes to do. So what I can't figure out, though, is if antitrust can be used to solve labor issues, what else can we use it for? Like, is it like a Windex on cleaning wounds? Like, you just spray Windex on everything and it'll do everything. Antitrust is like the new rage in public policy. Use it for everything.
Well, I mean, with regards to my big fat Greek wedding, nice call, by the way, on the Windex. I'm still struggling with the labor market because it's really easy in America to change jobs. You just quit or get fired, or I mean, it happens millions of times a week. So
you can't beat me to the punchline, Kelly. This is the. You haven't seen my notes on this, so I find it funny because you're already foreshadowing where we're going because we know in the market right now, you go to any store and there's just not enough staff there, and it's not like people just vanished. It's not like we had the second coming and everybody just disappeared.
Well, yeah, but have you read there's an interesting article that came out, I want to say 6-8 weeks ago. I don't remember, but basically it was written by a guy, and I don't know what his background is or what his motivation was entirely, or who else he was working with as a longtime media adjacent myself. But his article basically was, hey, I'm a blue collar guy, and I was qualified for these jobs. So I applied for 2 jobs a day for 30 days in a row. And I got 1 phone call and no interviews. And his point was, are there not businesses that are trying to do with less from a labor perspective and utilizing the perceived shortage of people who want to work as a way for them to do more or the same with less? Because your biggest expenditure is often labor, I believe, or at least that's what I was told growing up. And, so it's a mystery to me still. What's the reality of, people can't just sit at home and do nothing. I realize they can for a certain period of time, but at some point those jobs need to be filled. Right?
Yeah. And I think that, they can't sit at home. But I think that as they might be able to now, wages have gone up to help fill some of these slots.
Yes, which I think is one of their demands there.
And as they're being in that case labor. And as the wages continue to go up, some of those people will decide that working is more important than the free time. What's becomes interesting about that is that kind of raises that inflation level that next little bit because prices then have to increase to pay for that additional labor. And then the going back to work becomes less valuable because inflation's increasing. So there's all sorts of interesting things that are getting ready to happen in the economy. But it's interesting that she brought this up because you hit the nail on the head. We're at a weird spot in the labor market. So let me go on for just a second more. She then talks about she has to make a point. Her point here is that the DOJ and the FTC want to go after antitrust, and they don't want to go after antitrust for the consumer standard. They want to go after labor. So she tries to make her point that asymmetries in the labor market are becoming more acute, or employers are getting more power over labor. And because that's if you're labor, that's how you say you have a problem, right? Like, the employers, they have more power over us than they've ever had. And she says that a part of this is the new kind of virtual work environments and how it takes away your privacy and everything else. I think that we can all come up with opposite fights to that. But what amazes me about this, she finishes by saying that that employers are depriving workers of what they are owed. Now, when I do a lot of these, I don't use their words in my final breakdown, but on that one, that was a quote, because I can't even come up with a line like that. What are you owed, Kelly?
My salary and any agreed upon benefits.
Yeah, I don't. Well, but
for an honest day's work.
But is you're owed more than that? Your salary isn't enough. Like,
then I should go find a new job.
Yeah. As long as an employer isn't marching an employee into work by gunpoint, like, they aren't depriving anybody of anything as long as they're fulfilling a contract. Now, like, I don't want to pick on Trump on this, but we talked about him, and so his name was up. There was complaints that he didn't pay contracts at some point. That would be depriving somebody of what they are owed.
Sure.
If you are working for me and I am giving you a paycheck and I'm fulfilling everything that we agreed on before you came in here, and I didn't go walk you in here with a gun, that is what you are owed. That's what we agreed on.
Right. I mean, I won't say the name. So if you're from the South and you know there is a chain of gas station convenience stores that are gigantic and awesome, you know who I'm talking about. So I was at one of these locations recently, and they have a sign at every gas pump that indicates what they're paying for employee, or they'll call it team members, team leaders, shift leaders, and managers. And everybody gets 3 weeks vacation. Everyone gets 401k, and the salaries are at the level that sort of that national level of everybody's kind of said, well, it needs to be $15, $16 an hour and higher, right? So they're advertising because they're a big business and they need a lot of people. But they've stepped up to pay those rates and add benefits to it. And it kind of seems to me, and I've heard others argue, well, no, I'm stuck in this job because I can't, where else am I going to go? I don't mean any offense by this, but the next place down the road, right? I mean, just if you take the bus to work today, the buses go other places. If you have a car, the cars could take you somewhere else. You could take mass transit. And you know, I will be attacked for that, I'm sure, because that doesn't fit into somebody's narrative. But I've been let go, and I have also changed jobs a few times in my life and always found something, although at least once or twice that was not a very pleasant experience. For both reasons, but for both being let go and deciding to leave myself. But there's always something else. It's America.
Well, in a way, Lina Khan agrees with you in the next section of the speech.
Oh, good.
Because that is kind of what she says. She says, as businesses continue to navigate the global pandemic, workers have been leaving their current jobs in record numbers, often citing low pay and poor working conditions.
Yeah.
Now, you know, who knows what the working conditions were? Maybe it was just a guy who ate, you know, tuna fish at his desk next to him. Maybe it wasn't like, you know, a scary coal mine.
Or a jerky boss, right?
Or a jerky boss.
Yeah.
And maybe the pay wasn't that low, but maybe they knew that they keep seeing the gas pumps in Texas, and they're like, I should be making more money. And so they're leaving for that. So I'm adding some qualifications for her. I mean, she was trying to use it to attack everybody. Mm-hmm. But she makes the admission in the middle of this that, you know, labor does have the power. Labor is leaving. And in fact, the administration is doing almost everything they can right now to deal with either message that there is no labor problem, or message that there isn't a labor problem and therefore inflation's going to not going to happen, or that, you know, I guess everything's hunky-dory and nothing at all is wrong or going to happen, and just completely bury their head in the sand. But Lina Khan does take time out of her labor bashing to admit that labor is a problem for current employers. And then she wakes back up and realizes that she has a job to do. And so again, goes after mergers and the digital workforce, and that kind of shocks her speech back into kind of game mode, and then really ends the speech by saying that collaboration with enforcement partners at both the federal and state level, they're going to take the whole government approach envisioned by the president's executive order on competition. So I see this speech in 3 parts, right? Or maybe it's 4. Either way, She starts the speech off by framing her own reality, which is antitrust can be used to enforce or solve labor problems. She then admits that labor problems aren't real, and in fact, employers are the ones that are having labor problems. And then reverts back to what she wanted to do and says that they're going to use the whole government to attack her made-up premise. So in general, this is 3 pages of scary to me. Knocked down into a half page of scary, which I'll admit, once you condense it, it's even scarier because it's funnier. Like you can see like how diluted it is in a shorter amount of time.
I'm still stuck on labor and antitrust. I'm sorry. It just in the environment that you brought up, in the time right now where I know people who have changed jobs. I know a lot of people who have changed jobs recently. And then I know people who have come to me and said, I got to get out of this sitch, whatever the situation is. And they just need to know where to go. Like that's part of the problem is I don't feel comfortable enough in my ability to go find what I really want to do or present myself through resume or interviews. Like that's the anxiety that I see, not I'm stuck in this job. It's how do I present myself appropriately and where do I go to do that? You know, is monster.com still a thing? I mean, I don't really know. So, LinkedIn, I think is the new,
it was the monster.
Yeah.
It was going to take over the
Right.
industry. We needed to
Right.
stop it so that recruiters would still
Right.
have a job. This is I didn't lay this out completely. It might be clear between the Amazon conversation and then this one. I'm antitrust. I do understand the Bork idea of if you're going to use antitrust, apply it for the consumer welfare standard. But in general, when you look at like oil, Rockefeller, when they were passing the bills that were trying to keep Rockefeller from having a monopoly in oil, it was Rockefeller who was writing those bills. So like, even if you want antitrust legislation, even if antitrust legislation would work if it was written correctly, the general nature of the beast is to write it correctly. You have to invite those people into the room, and they're going to end up leading you down a way that it might hurt them, but the fact is it's going to hurt other people more. So like in Amazon, a Klobuchar bill is going to hurt Amazon because less people want Amazon if Amazon can't provide Prime. However, the people that it really hurts are the small business owners that were using Prime to get their name out there, to make extra money, to expand their market outside of their little town and get across the country and even the world. So I'm opposed to antitrust, but I'm with you on this one. It's why we did a 4-page speech. Like, it's hilarious. It's sad, but it's hilarious.
So if you bring them in, maybe you bring them in and you say, hey, we want to make some changes. Would you like to be part of making those changes? I don't know if that's how the world of government and politics thinks right now, but going back to your Rockefeller point of view, come in and sit at the table with us while we work on these changes and it won't feel as bad. I don't know. I don't know. I'm making that up. Yeah.
No, they invite, they aren't necessarily like, well, first off, they are invited in. But second off, like they are also, there's rooms where you publicly talk about the bills. And then there's other rooms where you write the bills. And they're also pull up a chair next to those rooms and help write the bill. There was a markup on patents one time. In a markup is you have a bill. I said we were going to come back to this. We're going to do it at the very end of the show. A markup is you have a bill. All the legislative language is there, but a markup, other people can add things to the bill in a committee. And as they add those things, you vote on them. So it's like a little mini debate inside your committee. Sometimes it's just punctuation. Most of the time it's full amendments or deleting areas. But there was a markup in House Judiciary, and they needed to change, a may to a shall to a may. And in the middle of the markup, they actually the head staffer for the committee came around and huddled with Google and like 5 Google lobbyists. The Google lobbyists went over and huddled with several other Google lobbyists, and I believe some other industry people came back over to the staffer. They came up with an idea and went back and proposed the final language that they were going to use, and it passed and got included in the bill. I was thoroughly amazed. I was like, wow, that happened in the public's eye. Who knows what happened out of the public's eye? They felt comfortable enough to do that in front of this whole room. And so when you're talking about these antitrust bills, that is what will end up happening. And again, it doesn't end up hurting the big guy. It ends up hurting the little guy. It ends up hurting the consumer. And yes, I would say ends up hurting labor, but we don't really need to make that. Lina is trying to make that argument herself. So,
yep.
Kelly, thank you again for your time.
Yeah.
And thank you all for watching. This is episode 2, and come back soon. We'll have another fun speech to go over.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.